Washington Post. He's also a Fox News contributor. He joins us now to talk a little bit more. Bill was just saying the president doing what presidents do, there to survey the damage and wanting to respond correctly, quickly, and efficiently.
Well, this is a moment when people look to their president regardless of party. He's the consoler-in-chief. He's also the chief executive in terms of disaster management. So he's got to come in there and give them comfort, not only that the country is behind them and that we recognize the devastation of what's happened to them, but also that he's marshaling the resources of the federal government to help. So this is sort of one of these moments when the country should be rallying around the president, and the president should be rallying the country.
He received some pushback because speaking of rallying, he attended a political rally when the hurricane was actually hitting. And here is the president now, Bill.
We're just going to take a moment here to welcome the rest of our Fox stations across the country. So on the cable side, we'll pause for a second here and allow them to join our coverage as the First Lady and the President now make their way down the stairs at Eglin Air Force Base near Santa Rosa in Florida. I do believe Mike Huckabee, he lives nearby, and he was talking earlier about what he has seen out there. So let's go and take a moment here to pause, bring in the other folks across the country as our coverage continues. This is Fox News coverage of the president's trip to hurricane-ravaged Florida. I'm Bill Hemmer, live today in New York City on this Monday. The president and the first lady arriving a moment ago. They're about to see some scenes of devastation, that few of us see in our lifetimes. 19 people reported dead. At least one town suggests at least 35 others still missing. That death toll could go higher before it's all done. Michael, Category 4 hurricane, 155-mile-an-hour winds. The destructive storm surge just ripped homes from their foundation, and the extent of that damage runs for miles inland. Along with Heather Childers here in New York. And Heather, we have seen the president now visit two spots in the American Southeast that have been hit by Mother Nature that has changed a lot of lives for a long time. Right
on the heels of Hurricane Florence that swept through these areas. You see the president shaking hands there, Governor Rick Scott there, as well as Congressman Matt Gaetz. And as we were just discussing, he becomes the consoler-in-chief in moments like this. Good job.
In the case of Rick Scott, the governor, he's been on the scene for all of these events as governor.
He's got to be tired. And
now he's running for Senate. Yeah. But what he said over the weekend about indescribable and unprecedented damage. They're talking about 1,700 search and rescue personnel have checked out 25,000 homes. And there still is so much more to do. So this is where the tour begins now for the first couple.
We were showing the drone footage across the area and it being so expansive. And it's amazing the technology that we have today that we did not have in previous storms years ago, where we can see exactly what has happened to people. And then we also had a report earlier where one family actually used NOAA satellite systems, where they saw their grandparents. They were there at home within the expanse of the damage, and they had put out help in their yard. Turned out they were okay, so it was a happy ending.
Yeah, so much of this is it's a repeated story in that you lose the power and then the evacuees leave and they come back. But this is taken to a much greater degree so far here in Florida. Not only dealing without power and the foundations of homes that have just vanished, but there's no cell service. And as much as we've come to rely on technology and the internet, there's none of that right now. Right. And it is word of mouth for the people trying to figure out what is next for this stage of their lives. So we could get a moment here for the president to answer some questions and make a comment. So we're just going to hang on this image until we get further confirmation of that.
Yeah, that's why there's still so many people missing or unaccounted for, because as you mentioned, communications are down, power is out. The president tweeting out earlier that he would be making this trip today and specifically thanking all the first responders. Let's listen.
While we're here, we're going to be doing a pretty big tour, and then we're going to Georgia. I'm going to Georgia. Rick Scott, your governor, has done an incredible job, and all of your people have been amazing, working with FEMA, working with the first responders, and always law enforcement. The job they've done in Florida has been incredible, and likewise, I'm hearing in Georgia very good things, Rick. So I want to thank you. You're a great governor. You really have been. He steps up in the biggest emergencies, the biggest problems, and he gets it done. So, Rick Scott, thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the president. We talked almost every day. come through. Marc is here on FEMA, West Florida and the State Emergency Management Team. Everything I've asked for from FEMA, they've done. We've got water out, we've got food out. We all together, we had search and rescue teams the night of the hurricane go into these communities to save lives. Our Coast Guard did missions at night saving lives. They saved a lot of people's lives. So everybody's worked together, the National Guard, Highway Station, but I want to thank everybody for all this coordination to save lives and get people back to normal as quickly as we can. But I want to thank the President again. Every time I've called, he's come through and done exactly what he said he was going to do.
I have to say, one of the most incredible things always is power. And we have thousands and thousands of electricians at the top level, but the electric companies have followed as the hurricane left. They followed right behind it. And they put on hundreds of thousands of homes that are already back. Now, the one problem is some homes don't exist anymore. I mean, they're literally wiped out. They have electric going to empty sites, but the electric companies have been really incredible in responses. So we want to thank them. Just making sure everyone's safe, that they're fed. You know, many of these people have no home. Some of them have no trace of a home. You wouldn't even know, it just got blown right off the footing. So our big thing is feeding, water, and safety. And again, Rick Scott has done an incredible job. Really, I want to thank you. Thank you, everybody.
It is a governor's first responsibility, especially when it comes to the state of Florida. You think about how much Governor Scott has been exposed to this, but the initial remarks are quite clear that he respects the job that FEMA, the federal government, and the president has done so far with their request to get more help.
And the president thanking, FEMA, first responders, and law enforcement, saying, feeding, water, power, those are the priorities right now.
Looks like Matt Gaetz there. He represents the district down, the Congressional District 1 in the Florida Panhandle, so we'll continue to track that. This is what they're dealing with in Mexico Beach. Another body was found on Saturday in the rubble, and there was a lot of rubble remaining behind. On Sunday, you still had at least 200,000 customers in Florida still in the dark, over 11 different counties. That's such a wide area, and that's just in Florida, not to count Georgia to the north. 4,000 members of Florida's National Guard have been called up to deal with this storm. 500 were added again on Saturday. You had 2,000 law enforcement officials sent into the Panhandle. Looting is always an issue in the end, and you want to make sure for the folks who they obey the evacuation order, go ahead and leave their home behind.
And you hope that they did that.
And that they can come back, and it is still respected, and their property is respected as well.
I've been to this specific area, these beautiful white sand beaches. It's just heart-wrenching to take a look at this devastation right here, because that will impact them years and years and years to come economically. I mean, tourism, that's what they count on.
Yeah. Marc Thiessen is still with us. Marc, you've been listening to this, and you think about the first job of a governor is to take care of his people. Rick Scott's in the middle of a campaign as well, and the president now seeing this in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina prior. Your point is well taken. You have to be a consoler-in-chief, not just a commander-in-chief.
Well, he's got to be both. I mean, you're absolutely right. He has to be consoler-in-chief. He's got to go to these families, devastated families. I'm sure he's going to be meeting with people in shelters today and talking to them and comforting them. And these are moments when and it's very hard because there's a really consequential election just weeks away. But these are moments when we have to put aside politics and come together as a country. And that's what Donald Trump's job is to do today, is to bring the country together, to let these people know the country stands behind you, that we're 100% with you. We're doing everything that we can to get you the resources you need to rebuild your lives. So he has to be the consoler-in-chief, but also the chief executive, the commander-in-chief, who's marshaling the National Guard and all the other assets we have to deliver real assistance to these people who are so devastated. So this is a chance for him to really be the president of all Americans, as he promised he would be.
Marc, thank you. Stand by, okay? Marc Thiessen watching this in Washington, D.C.
Will do.
To our viewers across the country, this has been coverage on the Fox News channel and this Fox station of the aftermath of Hurricane Michael. The president and the first lady arriving in Florida. They will tour throughout the next several hours. Later, they'll end up in the state of Georgia as well. So stay tuned to this channel and the Fox News channel for continuing coverage on this story. Until then, I'm Bill Hemmer from New York on this Monday late morning. And now our coverage continues on cable.
Yes, Marc, you're still with us. You were just talking about bringing the country together. Is it possible for that to happen? Will outside forces allow the president to do that, even when you have situations like this going on where people have lost their home, lost everything?
Well, how pathetic would it be if we couldn't? I mean, you know, this is a national tragedy. These are our fellow Americans who are struggling with, you know, literally, as the president just said, their homes don't exist anymore. They're literally, the foundation has been ripped from the ground in some cases. You have entire towns that have been destroyed. If we can't come together as a country and put aside politics for a day to support these people, then what have we come to as a country?
That's true. That is a good point. But at the same time, the president already getting pushback, and I was going to mention this to you earlier, attending a political rally when the hurricane was actually moving in.
Yeah, you know, I mean, there were lots of people who were campaigning during when that was happening. He's got responsibilities as the head of the Republican Party. He's got responsibilities as commander-in-chief. I don't think that attending a political rally was distracting him from his responsibilities to manage the hurricane. You know, what is really irresponsible are all these people now running around saying, you know, attacking him about his, you know, global warming policies, as if global warming was responsible for this, and sort of politicizing this tragedy. The reality is that he's got a job to do, which he's doing, which is to manage the federal bureaucracy, to deliver aid to these people, to respond to this crisis, to deal with their immediate needs, and he's doing it. And so let's all rally around the president for a day, and rally not just around him, but rally around these people who need us to put aside politics for a few hours and talk about them.
And they love to know that people are giving the attention on the outside, and sometimes you can lose sight of that. Marc Thiessen, thank you for your commentary there in Washington.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate that. You bet. Let's get a quick break here as the